What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another Bucks on Deck podcast episode. Back with you after a little bit of a holiday break. I'm Anthony Murphy. With me, as always, Nola Jeffy. Nola, what's going on, man? How was your holiday?
Just another day in paradise. It was pretty nice and relaxing. Um, got to see family, eat a lot of good food.
Yeah.
A lot of good food. A 21-inch quesadilla.
Yeah. The more Nola posted pictures in our group chat that we have, I was seriously considering buying a plane ticket to meet up there and get some food because that stuff looked delicious. And that was probably the biggest quesadilla I've ever seen in my life. So,
It was absolutely delicious too. I have to
yeah.
say.
Yeah, I was super jealous of that, but I had a good holiday. Got to we did something at the house here. We were excited. I'm not much like a big holiday person, or I'm not a big like get together kind of person, but it was, with the new house, this was like the first like major holiday, I guess you can say, here. So it was fun to have everyone over for that, to actually have the space to kind of do that kind of cooking again. Did something at the house, then actually got to go up to my brother's. We this is how we generally do things in the Murphy family. Everything is a very last minute, and like we planned a little get together with my brother, my dad, and then like my brother's girlfriend and her mom, and we planned and coordinated and did all that like in under 24 hours. Like he texted me at like 6 o'clock Wednesday night and said, "Hey, you want to go ahead and do this?" And we're like, "Sure." And yeah, but everything turned out good. We had a good time, and I'm I'm excited to get back into some baseball stuff here today. But today we're going to start off with a little bit of off-season talk. It's been kind of slow. Not not much has gone on unless you're a Los Angeles team. You haven't really. There hasn't been too much, and I think you mentioned it too before. I can't remember where, but it's just like there's not even that many like rumors going around right now. Like
Yeah, not
it's just been
really.
quiet. So, well, yeah, the Los Angeles teams have kind of like controlled. I think the Angels. I would be feel safe to assume the Angels have made the most free agent signings so far. The Angels or the Dodgers have kind of they've made the most significant ones, obviously, with Blake Snell
Yeah.
and Tommy Edman. What were your thoughts on the Dodger signings?
Um, I guess just typical Dodgers moves in essence.
Yeah,
Going out and getting one of the, if not the top pitcher on the market right away. Um, Tommy Edman. I guess that one was a little surprising, but he's been a very productive player. So, um, they've been deferring a lot of money, which will be very interesting.
yeah, yeah. So like when we first talking about what we're gonna kind of like go over here on the episode, we're talking about like the how exactly the off season with how the offseason is rolled out, like how exactly maybe that impacts the Pirates. I wouldn't say that these signings are gonna have any impact on Pirates necessarily, just because they were never going to be in the market for those kind of players. Two signings recently, though, I think will have somewhat of like a trickle down effect, or could have a trickle down effect that could kind of impact, or where the Pirates can jump in here is the Frankie Montas and Matthew Boyd signing. Montas signing a 2-year, $34 million contract with the Mets, and Boyd signing 2
Mm-hmm.
years for 29 with the Cubs. Obviously, the Pirates aren't. I'd imagine the Pirates aren't going to be in the market for a free agent starting pitcher, especially at that price.
No.
But let's say that teams are unwilling to spend that kind of money on some of the other names out there. I think that's really where the Pirates start to come into factor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that kind of ties into the MLB pipeline article to where they're talking about like one trade candidate per team, and Bailey Falter was their pick for the Pirates. I think you've been kind of like banging the table on Luis Ortiz more so. I think you've kind of just said just trade them both though recently, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's one or the other. Really, I wouldn't mind them trading. I guess I had mentioned that, especially with Oviedo coming back next spring, Oviedo probably would have some of the least value just with regards to he's coming off of Tommy John, so you don't know specifically where he's going to be at.
Mm-hmm.
But I would look to trade two of the three. And then, I mean, especially how this market is beginning, it's looking like, as of right now, like pitching is going to be pretty valuable.
Yeah.
And given their farm system, and the depth of pitching they have,
Mm-hmm.
particularly starting pitching, I think they could really use that to their advantage.
Yep.
And I mean, they very well could still pick up a starter just to, backfill. Maybe if they don't want to go into spring assuming, Bubba's going to make it, or that they're going to rely on Bubba and one of Harrington, Ashcraft, or Burrows. They might
Yeah.
want, say a Spencer Turnbull, who's someone I've personally been intrigued by in the past. You could get him probably on the cheap, and then just say, all right, last spot's open for business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the big thing with it is like you look at it, and I think a lot of the value is coming from the innings pitch, and you have the chance. Like you, what is it? The Cubs paid right at $30 million for a guy that's coming off of Tommy John surgery, who's I believe at or over 30, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
well, I guess I don't want to say an old boy, but he's 35.
He's 33.
Oh, sorry, that's Hendricks. 34.
34.
Well, I guess we'll be 34.
Yeah, he'll be 34 by time the 2025 season starts. So,
Yeah.
Teams obviously.
I will say I was just gonna say I was actually kind of surprised because, well, I'm looking at like the Fangraphs crowdsourcing, and they had him at 2 years, 18 million, 9 AAV. But I believe it was Kylie McDaniel had mentioned that he actually saw Boyd getting that kind of money, whereas Montas got grossly overpaid.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with them, like I guess the thing that my takeaway from like the Montas signing is that there's value in like a pitcher's ability to like eat innings. And the ERA wasn't good. I think when I looked at it, it was like right at 5, but he tossed right at 150 innings pitched. And so like if you can get a pitcher, and I think so that if you want a pitcher who can get both Ortiz threw about 130, or Falter threw right at like 150. So like you have the opportunity to not only get pitchers who posted better ER, and you think with like Ortiz too, if like he was a starter the entire year, he probably gets right around 150 innings too, because like he started the year in the bullpen. So I think it's probably more attractive to like a more teams to get players that are still controllable, younger, and have also shown the ability to eat innings. I think there's, if the Pirates can get creative here, this offseason's really propping up to be a really good opportunity for them to get something good in return for one or both of them. Like I wouldn't. Yep. I think the safer bet would be one. them trade one. But like if they really feel like they're right there and they feel really comfortable with like where Bubba Chandler is, or if maybe they can, like you said, turn around and swing in and bring in like another veteran arm. I wouldn't be opposed to just trading them both, because I mean there's still plenty of holes to fill here on this roster.
Yeah, well, that's a two. I mean, Frankie Montas last year was coming off injury too.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I think it's just because he was so dominant when he pitched. But I think it was he hasn't pitched over 80 innings in like 5 years. But the thing is, all it really boils down to is the Pirates have options. They could trade one. It's going to rely a lot on who and what they do with free agency.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that too is, I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about the winter meetings here in a little bit, and I think you know we're a week away from the winter meetings, so this is going to be a really good opportunity for the Pirates to at the very least like lay the groundwork down for something to happen, and I think everyone's kind of waiting and hoping something does happen, and we don't get too far, and that maybe teams look elsewhere and stuff like that. It's going to be hard. I feel like it's going to be hard to find other teams that are in position to make a trade to move like two pitchers. Like we saw how like the playoffs went down. A lot of teams were a lot of the better teams were going with like bullpen games in the series and stuff like that. So just because they didn't have enough starters and stuff like that. I think the Dodgers, they win the World Series and they're doing like multiple bullpen games, per series. So I think it's a good opportunity for the Pirates to jump in here.
They lost
it's
a
just
lot of
I don't
pitchers,
think they can wait. Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. A team like the Dodgers, I mean, they probably would even still. I mean, we'll see what happens with Roki Sasaki, but they probably could still use some depth starters just because of how many pitchers went down with injury last year. I mean, I think it's like 5 total. Like Kyle Hurt, Grove.
I think Gavin Stone's out for the year too. River Ryan's out for the year, or will be out for the year.
It was like all Tommy John, and then one of the starters was shoulder surgery. So
and then like you even think about it too, like Yamamoto missed time with injury this past year. Glasnow obviously missed time. Ohtani's going to be coming back from Tommy John, so even I've seen a couple tweets and posts and stuff like that about like people showing off like just the kind of depth that the Dodgers have, but like if you really want to peel back the layers of it, like it can get shallow pretty quick because a lot of these guys have dealt with like multiple injuries. Even like like someone like Dustin May, he
just came back
multiple years. Yeah, he came back and then was hurt again and missed a good chunk of the season this year. So
yeah, they like guys that just throw hard.
So I mean, if you draft and develop the way that they do, I mean, they can afford to just do that because they'll just always have a guy waiting.
Yeah.
So, but I think another thing too that I wanted to talk about, I want to kind of get your opinion on it too. It's something that's kind of popped up more, especially because with like the Dodgers and the free spending, and I think more so now because of all the deferred money they're doing. More and more people are kind of talking about the whole salary cap, salary floor thing. I think it was like me and Cody back in the day had an episode where we kind of really went in depth with this. I don't think we've ever talked about it before, but like I kind of, you might have been on like the episode there.
I feel like I might have been on one. I don't know if it would involve all three of us or I don't know, but I feel like there was one somewhere in the depths of the archive.
Whatever. Yeah. But I kind of want to get your thoughts on like a salary cap in baseball in general. Is that something that you'd like to see? Do you think it's something that could help, or like what part would it help and stuff like that?
I mean, I think it would help. I think one of the reasons people don't like it is they think that it could potentially hurt players how much money they could earn ultimately and how much money would go to the players. I'm more specifically, is it the NBA where they have like a hard like 51% has to go towards the players or something like that?
I believe so.
And obviously a lot of the talk is about how Scott Boras is the one that's keeping it from happening because, he wants his top players to get the top dollars so that he makes money. And even there, I think hard cap still wouldn't really detract from that itself because if you look at the way the NHL operates, they have a max contract you're allowed to offer, which is 20% of the hard cap annual value. So, I mean, say there's a $300 million hard cap, you can offer up to $60 million a year AAV. So that wouldn't really hurt. And I think the bigger, and if you have a floor, then obviously you're forcing the smaller market teams to infuse money into the market to the players. And it really comes down, would be in a sense, maybe similar to that huge cash infusion the NBA had where you're probably paying utility players that aren't worth the kind of money that they're getting paid. And that might just be a matter of the beginnings of a salary cap and it would kind of flush itself out.
Yeah.
But it just, the way it works now is, could the Steelers, not Steelers. Sorry, I got a football game on in the background. Could the Pirates afford to go after, one of the premier? Could they go after a Soto? Yeah, they could add that if they wanted to, and Bob would still make money.
Yeah.
Where the issue arises is if Soto gets hurt, there's no. If he gets hurt, if he doesn't play up to quote unquote the contract, then you're turning into the 2016 Pirates where McCutchen had a down season. Cole didn't exactly play up to speed. Liriano didn't play well. Whereas like a Dodgers, if Mookie's not playing well, who cares? You still got Ohtani, you still got Freeman, and all these other players that, hey, we can just lean on them for right now. And a team like the Pirates is still going to have to rely on those mid-tier players to pick up their end of the weight. And I think that's where, hard cap would probably do better because then, you can't stack a team full of star players. You have a Alexander Barkov playing with the Florida Panthers in what was generally a deserted franchise and weren't very good, but they could afford to pay Alexander Barkov every year, keep him there, and eventually build around him. And now they're one of the top teams and won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
and the way I don't know if I could want to say in essence the way the Dodgers are deferring money is almost relatively similar to how like the Tampa Bay Lightning were, what's the word? Subverting the hard cap in the NHL, where and I forget a couple other teams had done it too, where I think it was Mark Stone maybe with Vegas, where they put him on the long-term injury reserve because if you have a player on the long-term injury reserve, whatever their contract value is, that money is now available to use on other players. So if you have an $8 million player on the long-term injury reserve, that $8 can now be used for another $8 million player. As soon as
Mhm.
playoffs hit, oh look,
What do you
Nikita
know?
Kucherov's healthy all of a sudden,
Yeah. Yep. Funny how that timeline matched up.
right? And they did that like 3 years in a row.
Yeah, because I think the next year they put someone else, it was like Braden Point or something like that, ended up on the long-term IL or something like that for the majority of the
Yeah.
year.
I want to say, and then I saw someone discussing the way the whole Otani contract works is essentially it gives them a 2-year window before they actually have to start funding the deferred money. To where,
Okay.
so like 2 years after the first year, I believe it is. I would have to probably look at the specifics again. They have to start putting $44 million into basically a fund every single
Mhm.
year. And then that $44 million just sits accruing interest every single year until they have to start paying it out, which, so in the end, they're going to end up making money on that deferred money. But
Genius. Smart.
at a certain point, they're going to have like a $300 million deferred cost every year almost.
They'll be paying more in deferred money than the Pirates payroll is going to be.
Yeah, like three
Or
times
the
it.
yeah, or like the Sacramento Athletics or whatever they'll be called at the time.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, like I know the first time that like the salary cap. I mean, salary cap's probably been something that's been talked a while, but like the first time since we've been like doing this, it was more of like just trying to keep teams from tanking, which I never thought like
Yeah.
their teams tank in salary cap like every year. It happens. It happens every year. Like the Chicago Blackhawks tanked for Connor Bedard. That's not going to stop it. Like I said, and like if you just do, I've seen some people talk about just doing like a salary floor, and I think I've mentioned it before. Like the only thing that does is make like a $5 million play or a $10 million play if you just do a salary floor.
Yeah,
Um,
basically.
yeah. So like the only way to do it, you have to do both. You have to cap and I think while there are certainly advantages to it because it kind of spreads team. So I mean, if you look even at the salary cap thing, like most of the big name free agents, it's still the same couple of teams that you kind of expect them to go to in like the off season and stuff like and the stuff like that. You know, like in hockey, you see like the Rangers involved with like all the big name free agents every year. They know how to, they're teams that are never going to be spending to the cap, so they can kind of offload those contracts, so just so then they can hit there's loopholes. So I don't think any system's going to be perfect with it. I don't think there is no right answer to it. Yes, in theory, a
Yeah,
salary
probably
cap
not.
gives more teams an opportunity to sign someone like a Juan Soto this year. Like if there's a cap in there, obviously the Pirates would be more of a possibility technically because they wouldn't be anywhere near the cap, or they might, or whatever, because the cap opens up more possibilities. But in the
Mm.
end, like it's usually the big market teams that get the big name free agents, no matter where you kind of go. Like no one's going. There's no big name free agent that's going to go sign with the Anaheim Ducks in the offseason or stuff like, or the San Jose Sharks, or well, I guess Eric Carlson signed. But you see what I'm saying? Like there's certain teams that like when free agency hit, even though they have all the salary cap in the world, they're never listed as a potential landing spot for any of the big name free agents. So
Well,
yeah.
and that's what I mean. I guess NHL is kind of cyclical in a way because I mean, yeah, there was a period where Anaheim, which that was probably pre. No, that was I think that was right after the hard salary cap was instituted, like the jiggy years, the Jay Jaguar.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Paul Correa and Timu Solani, Niedermeyer. The Sharks for a good while were one of the premier teams when they had, like uh, Joe Thornton in his heyday, Joe Pavelski. But yeah, their teams. I mean, hell, the Blackhawks took like a 3-year dead period after Patrick Kane
Yeah.
and Jonathan Taves kind of tailed off because they were they were basically a team that they what they won they were actually kind of doing what the Red Sox would do, where they'd win a championship, have to offload a bunch of fat contracts because they were paying, like, all their top players were getting top dollar, along with Kane and Taves and I think Bufuglian. Crap, who was the other defenseman? They had another like big time defenseman that was making just stupid money. Well, not stupid money, but had a big contract, and then they had to offload a bunch of players, and then the next year they were terrible. And then I think the next year they got it back together, won a cup, and then they had to offload everybody again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't think, like I said, I don't think there's any like perfect solution to this. But I will say that like the way that the Dodgers are like built and stuff like that, like if you were to institute like a salary cap like tomorrow, and like everything, and you're able to find a way to make everything clean, like I still think that they're just the way that they've been able to draft and develop, like they're still probably the favorite year in year out kind of thing. They
Yeah,
just
and
have
that's
to,
probably that.
or just instead of having to trade, instead of like trading their prospects constantly they'll just have more of them playing on cheaper deals to start.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a yeah. So, that probably is one of the biggest X factors, is just the fact that, pretty well, I guess not NHL necessarily, but I mean NBA and NFL, it's pretty much drafted play right away. I mean, at least NHL. I mean, your premier players, your top end players are usually, either, straight in a Bedard, a Crosby, or at least like only a year or two further development in some professional league overseas, and then they come play pro. Whereas baseball, I mean, outside of the 2023 MLB draft, which is kind of really showing why it was such a top end draft, where, you got 2, 3, 4 years before a player is going to actually debut in most cases.
Yeah. I think that highlights like another thing on it too. Like if they ever decide to give like a salary, like it may cost us a year of baseball kind of thing to kind of redo and rework everything to make this fit. Because like you mentioned, like with the draft, like they may have to go like just scrap everything and build it back up. Like even like with how the draft works, maybe there's a thing where you have to say like you can only draft college players now because they're going to be more likely to be able to step in quicker to and stuff like that to play. And like even you think maybe like contracts are going to have to be redone and stuff like that. I know hockey has like arbitration, like, but that's not, I don't feel like that's that big of a thing that we hear or see that often.
No, they just have like the 1 or 2 years of restricted free agency where like another team can put an offer sheet on a player, and then the team can either match or just be like, okay, you can take that bloated contract, which is who was it? Oh man, what was that guy's name? I want to say it was a Montreal Canadian, and the Hurricanes did it. Kotkaniemi or something like that, or I think he was a Hurricane, and the Canadians put like a stupid offer on him.
Yeah, it was I remember the. I feel like I know who you're talking about. I just can't think of the name.
Jesperi Kotkaniemi.
Yeah. He went for.
Okay, it was a Montreal player with the Hurricanes. He ended up pretty decent. A pretty good player. But yeah, if I recall correctly, like they put like some stupid, ridiculous offer on him, and the Montreal Canadiens were like, okay, you can take him. And I think they got a draft pick out of it.
Yeah. So yeah, like stuff like that, you'd have to find a way to, do stuff, and like I think if like a salary cap is, and maybe that's best. Maybe we do need to step away for a year to get if they really believe that that's the right way of doing things. But yeah, that I feel like it would definitely come with shutting it all down for a year to get all the wording right in something like that. So, do you have
Yeah.
anything else
Well, that's
or
and
on
then
the
we already
cat?
kind of. Well, I was gonna say, yeah, and almost, and again, kind of like we already mentioned, like a Kevin Newman's probably gonna have. Someone's gonna be like, "Look, we'll give you 10 million for a year just because we gotta."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's what is it? I think that happened to me when I used to play like the NHL on like the Xbox back in the day and stuff like that. Like I do like a fantasy draft and I take all these young players and then I'd get there and it'd tell me that like I need like $10 million to get to the floor or something like that. So I just go into free agent and give him like a $8 million contract just and then just stick him as like a healthy scratch all year. So yeah, there'll be some bloated contracts and like, but I guess bigger picture it helps. I don't know. I don't know. I would need to see something laid out. All right, or I'm okay with it. I'm good with it because in theory it works. It's just I don't know if I'd really want to lose an entire year of baseball at least to get something like that done.
Yeah, I don't know.
What I'd have to write about like basketball for the year or something like that. I don't know.
Oof, what
Or
would you have to
hockey.
put out like NBA props as a gig?
I do so bad at that. I what is it? I sent you that one the other night where I was like 3 points short of hitting a parlay, and thinking the whole time is like, this is why I don't do that no more.
Yeah, yeah, every
So
time, every time.
every time, every time. All right.
I think the one time I sent you one, a big one, it was like all I needed was Giannis 1 rebound, and there was like 4 minutes left in the game, and he never got it. I'm like, come on.
They sent him your prop bet, and he said, nope, not doing it.
Yeah, stupid.
All right. But we're going to shift gears here over to the winter meetings. Take place next week. Usually when we start hearing, we mentioned that there's not much on the rumor front. Maybe we start hearing some stuff. Pirates made a trade last year during the winter meetings. Got Marco Gonzalez. Did they do anything else that we can think of
During the winter meetings?
it,
Well, that's
yeah.
only because I was asking somebody else about it. Or I had mentioned something in the NS9 chat. I know Rowdy signed on December 15th, but I guess that was probably after.
I believe it was after. So I think
it's probably more just a bunch of rumors than anything.
yeah. So well, I guess this would probably be with the Pirates not having done anything. If I'm a reporter there, maybe I toss out the idea and ask, about maybe what the plans with Brian Reynolds is going to be. Like, do you see him still as an outfielder? Do you see him as first baseman? If they go out and their first big free agent signing is an outfielder, does that mean that he's moving to first base or what? But I guess without any rumors and with how unpredictable it can be, I guess it's kind of hard. This is kind of not a great question, but is there anything specifically that you'd like to see out of the winter meetings this year?
Specifically, I guess specifically would just more or less have to be with regards to chatter going on about some of the Pirates starters, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine someone pulling the trigger. I mean, if it would be nice because at least the whole thing with Brian Reynolds is, I mean, they haven't said anything. Part of me wants to say that they went into the offseason telling him like, look, it could be you might end up first base, you might end up in the outfield. It's gonna kind of depend on how the dominoes fall this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking at first base, we're looking at outfielders, and depending on what we end up pulling back, bringing into the organization, you'll fill in at one or the other, depending on what comes in.
Yeah. That seems not ideal for me. Like, I feel like if you're going to make that kind of move, I kind of feel like I'd want to have him go into the offseason knowing for sure. But then again, if that's what really happened, that probably wouldn't surprise me at all. With how some of the stuff has happened in the organization, if they went to him and said, "Yeah, we don't know what we're doing yet with you, but like we're gonna wait to see how things unfold," that actually sounds like a conversation that could happen in the Pirates front office.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and that's where it kind of comes down to, and that's where I kind of take it back to back when the whole argument over Kutch in center field happened, and it's like, look, are y'all trying to put the best team possible and put players in the best position to succeed? Do the players want to win? Because, I mean, you see it with the other organizations, successful organizations. Jazz Chisholm going to the Yankees. It was just like, yeah, where do you want me to play? Second base?
Yeah.
Cool. Outfield? Cool. You want me at third base? Let's do it. I want to play and I want to win. And if that is the vibes they're giving off in the organization, that like, look, we're going to do what we can. We're going to do our best to put a competitive team on the field to try and win baseball games, then I could see Brian Reynolds being like, hey, I don't care where you put me. Just, I want a competitive team to play with.
Yeah.
I'll play first base. I'll DH. I'll play in the outfield. I don't care. If you bring in the quality of players that are deserving enough for me to move, cool. If you're going to bring in, the next version of Brian De La Cruz or Edward Olivares, then yeah, like, why? What's the point?
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. We'll bring back Michael A. Taylor and move him to left field.
Yeah, there you
go. Rule 5. We talked about it a little bit in the group chat. Do you foresee the Pirates taking anyone?
Nah. I mean, I personally haven't glossed over the list too much. They might be intrigued by someone with big stuff. I know, Corey mentioned, was it Shane Smith and Griff McGarry, who I know, Griff McGarry's guy has gotten a lot of talk out of Philly, but I feel like they have a lot of high-end arms with big stuff and enough guys, especially in upper levels now. I mean, going back to the starters, an Ashcraft or Burrows could always move over into the bullpen if they need to. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens with Jaden Woods, especially as like a high-end, big stuff lefty. There's going to be arms.
Luis Peralta.
Yeah.
Luis Peralta 2025. And hopefully they don't trade him this time.
Yeah. But I think there's enough arms to play with that they don't need to fill a spot. Unless I think, like I said to Corey, I was just like, unless there's a guy they like that they could carry into spring training where they're just like, look, we just want to see where he's at, see if the stuff pops, and maybe we're like, hey, let's give it a go. Mm-hmm. Or get a guy to where they're like, look, we just want to get him into spring, and then we'll go back to whoever we took the player from and be like, let's make a deal so we can keep him.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind that. I think if there's obviously, I think if there's a player there that you see, even if it's a pitcher, I think this probably applies more to pitching. If there's a guy there that you see that you really like, I don't think there's enough guys on the 40-man roster that I feel the bullpen is still incomplete right now, as currently what's on the 40-man roster. So if you see a guy there that you really like, and they're like, I haven't looked into it too much. Like I've glanced over the like Baseball America had an article with some of the names and stuff like that. Some of the stuff did sound intriguing, and it does seem like some of the guys that they could go out there and throw like multiple innings now, maybe not as a starter. So maybe not somebody you have to like hide like you had to, like a Jose Hernandez, like the year, or like other guys that you've had to hide before. I think if there's someone here that you absolutely love, and you know, if you're big into analytics and the stuff just like pops there, yeah, sure, go ahead and take a grab at it. But like realistically, like I'm not adding anyone else really in this kind of thing unless it's seen as like I haven't done anything else this offseason. Like if I've brought in a couple guys, or I've made a trade, or if like I walk into the winter meetings and we lay the groundwork of a trade and we feel pretty confident that we can get this worked out, then yeah, sure, maybe. But I think at where they're at with what kind of stuff they still need to address, like unless like we get word that they dumped a bunch of guys off the 40-man roster, like I think they only have like two open spots now. So I don't know. I'll have to dig into it more, but I don't think there's really anything here that's probably worth tying up a 40-man roster unless they've dug a lot deeper and they found something else that, you know, we haven't seen yet, which wouldn't surprise me because, like we said, I haven't looked at it much.
And I mean they've unearthed some gems. So maybe there is a guy that has some particular stuff that pops out to them, and they're like, "Hey, we just want to get him into the organization," and maybe find a way to keep them. And I mean, I don't remember names specifically off the top of my head, but I mean, there's playoff bound teams that took a Rule 5 player and they stuck the entire year. There was a pitcher for, I want to say, the Diamondbacks that made it through the whole year. But I don't know. I just think that they have other areas they need to focus on.
Yeah.
That Rule 5 player is likely not going to help boost much.
No. I guess the only other thing, like winter meetings wise, that's really to look forward to would be the draft lottery. And the Pirates currently, thanks to the White Sox and the Athletics not being eligible, the Pirates have a 5.31% chance of getting the first overall pick. Looking at the article that I looked at, I think we both kind of looked at it. If everything falls into line, like no one jumps ahead of everyone, because of the A's and the White Sox dropping back, the Pirates would fall into the 6th spot. If someone wants to correct me on that, please do. But with the way it looked there, we'd just slide in if everything just went in order. Have you looked at anything enough for us to start campaigning for someone like we did with Braden Montgomery last year?
Laviolette.
All right, so we probably have to jump up the board for that one, though, right?
Yeah. We didn't get my Texas A&M outfielder last year, so this year Jace Laviolette. And he could likely stick in center field, so that's my table pound.
I'd be all for that. All for that.
Although another probably a top 5, if not at least top 10 guy I'll be paying attention to is Cam Canarella with Clemson. Mm-hmm. He was more of a contact over power hitter, but when it came to the end of I think he had a hamate injury or broken thumb, or I don't remember specifically off the top of my head right now, but yeah, he had an injury all year that he played with, and they're like, oh, okay, so maybe that, sapped it a bit, and there'll be a little bit more come next year. But I will say that people don't have to correct you because we do have Ethan's tweet that he put out September 30th about Pirates are 8th with the 6th best odds, 5.3%. So
cool. I haven't looked at the draft too much yet. I plan on doing like a weekly feature like I did this past year for it. So I'll probably start diving into it over the next couple of weeks to get a good idea for whenever I start them. But I say we just go big, get the first overall pick again, and take Ethan Holiday.
I mean, there's that too.
Sounds like he has more power than his brother. Like I was listening to that Baseball America podcast. They think he could be like a 25 to 30 home run guy with that could play third or play in the outfield. And if you're hitting right at 30 home runs, I really don't care where you play, to be honest. I just kind of want the 30 home runs, and you not to be like a bottomless pit defensively. I guess as long as you're not that, we can still find a way for you to play.
Though I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but I want to say I felt like I read something where Ethan Holiday was actually starting to slip, but they said that the same happened to Jackson the prior year to his draft year.
Well, Jackson started the whole draft process is like they thought he was going to be like a late day one, like day two guy, and then he just skyrocketed.
Yeah,
because I think going into it, everyone just kind of assumed like Drew Jones was going to go first overall that year.
Yeah,
and then he dropped a couple, and he's kind of struggled, but I think he's starting to play a little bit better. So, anything else on the winter meetings? Anything else you can think of? Anything that I missed? It's really just Rule 5.
I don't know.
There's no point in talking about the minor league portion of that yet, really, until it happens.
Not unless they get like 20 players selected again.
Yeah, that'll be a fun conversation after the fact.
That was wild.
So, yeah,
that was wild.
But okay, well, did you have any Nola knowledge to lay on us?
Give your kids NyQuil so that maybe they'll knock out and.
I take melatonin now, and like I don't sleep 8 hours, but like the 6 that I do sleep, like they're really good 6 hours. I wake up pretty fresh.
Yeah, well, that's we gotta be careful with that, especially with him. We've given him melatonin before, and he sleeps hot,
really?
As it is, and that stuff like makes him sleep hotter. And then he sometimes will be a tosser. Plus, you're supposed to get like a certain amount of sleep when you take melatonin. I think it's like a minimum 8, so you gotta be careful with that.
Yeah, I've been doing that.
Otherwise, you will wake up drowsy.
It takes me a couple extra minutes to get going in the morning when I get up, but like once I go, I'm good. So, but yeah. All right. Well, I think that's gonna do it for the episode here. Nola, where can they reach you on the social media thing, which I guess has grown by 1?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the same on Blue Sky or Twitter at NOLAJEFFY. Nola Jeffy.
Cool. As always, on Twitter, you can find me on Twitter at @Murphy88. You can find me on Blue Sky as well. It's just Anthony Murphy. I guess I'm the first Anthony Murphy to go on there, so that's pretty cool. Subscribe, Bucks on Deck podcast. We're doing a Black Friday sale that's still going on through the rest of the week. You get 20% off a yearly subscription when you become a paid member. I did the math on that. It's like $3.33 a month on average. If you as Nola pointed out, if you times that by 2, that's the devil's number.
Murphy's the devil. Devil.
We knew that. We knew that already, apparently.
Yeah.
Or we do one paid feature a week on the site, so that gets you premium content for less than $1 per. And then also it gives you access to our top 25 rankings, which I think we're going to try to shoot to do ours for the site around like middle of February again.
Yeah.
So go ahead and
gotta get through the guide stuff right now.
yeah, yep. I'm almost done with that. I think you're closer to being done than I am. I got 3 names, but I think like 2 of them like I feel like I could just like crank out like very quickly. So
yeah.
So subscribe to the site. Still churning stuff out this off season, and we'll see you guys. As far as what I'm thinking, I think we should be back to like a weekly episode at this point for the podcast. But obviously holidays and stuff like that could get thrown off. I guess maybe
it will. It'll get thrown off at some point.
Oh yeah, definitely. But until then, we will see you guys later. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning in.